This is Chiming In with Elise and David.
We've just finished the largest super full moon a few days ago. And with that full moon energy, I can feel so much trying to be released and looking forward to the future. So I wanted to start by talking a moment about what this moon means. And it's called the cold moon. We just had it on December 4th. And it's bringing things that maybe were unconscious in your mind, bringing them to the surface and then releasing them. Will you carry the old stories with you as we go forward? And, you know, the post full moon, we have a few days after where that same heightened energy still remains. And I think that, first of all, by the way, today is the anniversary of that first date. Did you know that?
I did know that.
And that's on episode 1 of our first beginning, How We Met. And so this time of year is a lot of reflection in general. And I know that a topic came up that we want to discuss. And that is something that used to be a very big part of our life early on. And that is taking things personally in our relationship. Maybe not on our first date, but as life did go on, we ran up against that often. And we want to unpack that a little today and release it, hopefully for our listeners, because we have come up with some really great suggestions and ideas that have worked for us. Organically, we didn't really know what we were doing at the time, but now we're on the other side of it and really live a life that doesn't have that issue anymore. Would you say that's true?
Yes, it has been a process. It's taken a long time. But with your help and with a lot of work, I believe we've come to the other side.
And I just want to be clear, the rejection we're talking about or criticism, taking things personally, I don't think we're talking today about the most obvious version of that. So what that would mean to me is when someone specifically does give you an obvious criticism that's very clear and would come across as essentially negative just in nature, and then you kind of roll with it and ruminate on it and take it personally, that is actually not what we're talking about today. What we are talking about is taking things personally, as in misinterpreting neutral conversation, basically assuming that there's criticism of what you're doing, and that somehow relates to your character, where a person who's taking things personally gets defensive, ruminates over the what appears to be a criticism, or that somehow the sentence suggested you did it wrong, or that you lack something, that you lack the capability in some way, shape, or form, when it's just a sentence. So do you want to put some light on that?
This is something that I struggled with a lot, and I kind of bring it back to my early days. And when I was growing up, I felt like I was in a household where my mother would treat me like the golden child. And so therefore, I was the person in the household that she looked to for comfort, and I could do no wrong. I did everything correctly, and I lived up to that. Whereas my sister, on the other hand, was very spirited, and she caused a lot of anxiety to my mom, and so therefore we had our roles, and I did not want to ever be in a position where I was doing something that could be looked at as criticism. And I think that followed through as I grew up, and in our relationship, whenever anything would happen between the two of us, that I would interpret as a criticism, it would sting me. You know, I felt really, really like I'm not worthy. I didn't do what I needed to do, and I let you down.
I remember sometimes you would go silent, and then I would go a little more, I'd get a little louder probably, because I wasn't understanding why my simple question somehow created this this defensiveness in you, and that the silence was not, it felt abrupt and it felt rude, and then I was taking things personally. I didn't even, the cycle was back and forth, whatever, it just batted one to the other.
Well, I think what happened, it was definitely a progression, but I think what happened first was you would say something to me, and maybe it was about the way that I washed the dishes, or that I didn't call you
The
during the
dishes
day.
again.
Yeah.
Pick
Or
another topic.
right, or maybe that I didn't call you to let you know that I was going to be late for something, or
Always. Yes, I
right.
hated that.
So those types of things you would tell me about, and I would bat back. I'd be like, "Well, I was going to do this. I was going to call you, but then this happened," and I would always have an excuse. And or the dishes, I like to do it this way, or whatever, and then we would have a fight about it, a literal fight. And I remember it going nowhere because you would always respond back with, when I would say, I feel like you're criticizing me, you're like, I'm not criticizing you.
Yeah, you always used to say, I feel like you're attacking me.
Right.
I was like, what are you talking
And
about?
you were shocked.
Shocked.
You were shocked and you were surprised because there wasn't anything about you in your mind that was giving off that feeling. And then we would talk about it, and I would understand, why did I react that way to this?
And it was a cycle, though. We did talk about it because that's literally what we do, which is why we're podcasting now. But it didn't really go anywhere. Our talks were just like little micro, like slivers in the DNA of the situation, and it wasn't cutting it off.
It wasn't carrying it through to the
stopping. Yes.
next situation. So I think that what I learned from that, and this is why I went silent, was I can feel the way I feel, and I'm just going to be silent about it, because it's not worth getting into a fight where you're going to end up convincing me that you didn't really mean it in the first place. You know, that it wasn't a criticism, it was just you expressing yourself. So that's probably why there was a period where there was quiet.
So, like the topic when someone says, or you said, did you change the laundry? I would take that and feel like, of course I changed the laundry. Who do you think I am? I'm the laundry queen. Whatever. Why would you get in all my business and ask me about that? So it would sound in some way condescending or derogatory. All these things were attached, whether your tone said it, whether the words said it. That's not even a real example. So do you have an example like that? Because you never asked me about laundry.
Oh, about me saying something to you?
Or vice versa. I mean, I think it comes out in the sneakiest ways is what I'm trying to say. And so let's just say that was a real example. And then if we do not unpack it, we do not uncover it, we do not discuss it, it lies and it sits on the desk, and the piles of that type of talk piles on,
Absolutely.
one after the next, until
It's like
one
a
day
mountain. It's like a mountain.
it is a mountain. It's a pile of shit. And until one day there's enough, the one next question, the one nothing question suddenly feels like all of those papers are being picked up and thrown at you. And you're like, you always talk to me this way. You always think, you never think, and it becomes this huge fight. And we were in that constant cycle. And it's not until we came to this other side, which we'll go into in a minute, that we realized if we can just pick up the little piece of paper, it's just a 1-page paper, and all it is this, let's unpack it for a moment, because we don't mean it, and we don't mean it to sound that way to the other person. There was a time that I felt like, how are we going to get through this? I think a lot of marriages do. And a lot of marriages don't get through it. And that may be perfectly fine for them. But there was a time where I'm like, how are we doing this? We had 4 little young children, all within a range of 7 years apart, not even. And life was crazy with them. And I couldn't imagine how we're going to get through all this everyday, daily crap. And I started to wonder if I wanted to do it by myself.
Well, I can tell you I felt the same way. I I felt like, was this mountain of garbage between the two of us so large that it was unfixable? Like, were we just not happy with each other? And have we gotten to a point where everything that you say to me and everything I say to you is just so painful and so hurtful that, it's just not worth
Like we're
continuing
not on the
on?
same page after all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And where was all that surprise and that magic before? Like, where did it go? How did it become so bad? And I think it was because all the micro fights, the micro insults or feelings of insults. Again, I don't think that it was real. It was a lot of ego and a lot of miscommunication. It was me working and then coming home and helping, but then feeling like criticism is towards me when you were just wanting things a certain way. And that was the way that you communicated it, was, I like it a certain way. You're not doing the right way. Can you just do it my way?
I don't know why I just had a flash when we first had our first baby, Bella, and I was nursing her. We didn't know what we're doing, new parents, and you asked me, and I almost wanted to scream when you asked me this. You would ask me, do you think she might be hungry? Like after I nursed her 4,050 times. And I remember screaming at you, and because it felt so like undermining me. Like, first of all, none of us knew what we were doing, and we're doing the best we can. And I just fed her. Why are you asking that again? And it was this part like, I don't want to do anything that's necessary to help this baby, so can you just stick her back on? Like, that's how it felt. And it was like, you, that I was all alone, and that I just took it completely personally that you're suggesting that I might not know how to feed the baby.
I do remember that. And I also remember one night, I was out in the living room.
I knew you were going to say this.
I think I was watching The Sopranos.
You were.
And
Wait. So our master bedroom was on, or whatever you call it these days.
it was right off of the foyer, which was right off of the living
double
room.
French doors to leading to the master, and
Yes,
the living room
yes,
was just
yes.
like right outside.
Right. And I remember you rolling Bella out in the baby stroller
No.
out of the bedroom.
Wait, picture this. I'm in the bedroom. She won't stop fussing or whatever the problem is. You're having a good old time watching Tony Soprano out doing whatever Tony Soprano does out in the living room by yourself.
Not good things. He was not doing good things.
And I'm in the bedroom freaking my freak, and I finally put her in. I had that type of bassinet stroller. I think it was like new at the time, that Bugaboo stroller. And I put her in the bassinet screaming, and I pushed the Bugaboo through the French doors and let her roll wherever she was going to roll in front of you in the living room. I did not join her.
And then slam the doors.
I did not join her.
This baby just
baby
appeared out of nowhere, came right through the doors. I guess it's my turn, my shift.
And you might have, yeah. Did you ask me if she might be hungry?
No, I didn't. I didn't ask anything at that point.
I mean, we could go on and on about those early years, and there is so much that happened during that time. I think one of the pivotal points in the chaos was when I sat down and came next to you, really up close. We weren't sitting across from each other like usual. And I took your hands because I felt like I could see you were so far away in this other world of shame and rejection, and I couldn't understand why you were there. I didn't want you to be there, and I took your hands, and I made you look at me, and I said, David, I love you. Like, I don't understand why when I ask a question, why it's not just the question. I don't understand what I'm doing, and I'm clearly doing something to make you feel so upset and so rejected or criticized because you loved using that word at the time. And I gave you an image of what was coming to my mind at the time, and that was we are building a foundation and a relationship. And all of the blocks that we had built were strong and solid. We'd gone through our pile. It wasn't a mountain. It was a little bit at a time. We'd taken each piece of paper of each little problem and tried to get past it. It wasn't always necessarily coming out in our actions, but it was still addressed. And we were good. Our foundation was solid. I loved you. I love you. I love the way you look. I love the way you talk. I love so many things about you. Those things are not ruined or gone just because I asked you a question. They are there. They're solid. They're the base. So anything that happens above that foundation is another level. It has to come from a place where you know for sure, I love you, and did you put the laundry in? I love you, and are the kids fed? Did you, whatever. I love you, and I wish you would have told me earlier that you were going to be late. Why didn't you? You know how much it bothers me. And that I love you first sentiment was not said out loud, but we started to realize that we were coming at it all wrong at the time. Wrong for us. It didn't serve us to act like we had a no base, no love, no friendship, that we were just two human beings flailing around in this crazy family life that no one knew what the hell we were doing, and we were sleep deprived and so on.
You're absolutely right. I think that the I love you part, spoken or unspoken, has to be there. And I did doubt that during those times. Before that, I felt like that was not there. Like, you are criticizing me and there is no love. So what are we doing? And once that got back into it, and once I realized that the love is always there, then all of a sudden those quote criticisms, which aren't criticisms at all, became meaningless. It wasn't, I didn't look at it that way anymore. I didn't feel it like that anymore. I felt like they were you just expressing yourself to me about a certain thing that I was doing.
So we were able to start to accept that we might have more control over our reaction and not put the blame to the other person, so that you were able to see that you were filtering my questions or my sentiments through a lens that wasn't serving you. And at some point in time, maybe it did. Maybe it protected you, right? But it doesn't and didn't anymore. And that if we were going to become a team, we really had to hear each other and take whatever was being said at face value and not filter it through your childhood lens of trying to not ruffle the feathers and never do something wrong, because you never wanted to hear your parents speak to you the way you heard them speak to others. You never wanted that to land for you. And when it did, it made you feel really yucky and you didn't like it. So you didn't want that. And here was this the idea that I remember I used to say, I'm not your mother. Why are you acting like I'm saying something to you? I'm just asking. Remember I used to say that all the time? Because you know, inadvertently it was set up that way.
This is perfect timing and related in my head to one of the responses you received from a social media request about people taking things personally. You want to share that?
Sure. Yes, we got several responses. Thank you all. One person wrote quite a beautiful and heart-wrenching story that I do think will sound familiar, especially David, to some stuff you just said. He writes, I have always felt like the rejected partner. I think a lot of it stems from childhood, when my mom, unknowingly, made me feel lesser than with all the praise she used to shower on my brother. a few "why can't you be more like hims?" and, well, you get the picture. So, always been super sensitive in that I think everything is always my fault. Every pause in a conversation, every time I think I'm reading disappointment from the woman I'm with, even though oftentimes it's irrational, I'm so prone to think the worst of things. If the person's tone is a little off, instead of me being able to just chalk that up to what is going on in their life, my first thought 99% of the time is, what did I do? Is our relationship going sideways? And although I never voice that to them, it's almost always gnawing at me, though. My biggest mistake is thinking it's about me. And I know I'm making that mistake, but it's almost impossible not to take it personally. I just summarized some of his message, but at the end of the day, David, I know this resonated with you. I could see your body kind of tense up while I was reading it. And it's very powerful to know that there are other people out there who are dealing with the same thing. That is literally why we are doing this, and that is why we posed the question on social media. I want to say a couple of things to my messenger and to you. And that is, you guys are awake. You are awake and aware. And I want you to give yourself permission to change the story, in your head. David, you've really worked on this and you've done this, but this is how it all started. And when you were back in the messenger's place, let's call him Paul.
Mm-hmm.
When you were back in Paul's place, and it felt like you were just constantly seeing the same behavior over and over again, no matter who you were with, you had to take a minute and revamp the story in order to see it differently. And that looks like this: whatever you believe, you will receive. Okay, so Paul, somewhere inside of you, you believe what your mom said. And a lot of years have passed since you first heard that. And it's time to pick up a new pen and a new notebook and rewrite your story. You get to, I hereby give you permission, give yourself permission to go back and change that past. So what does that look like? You get to say to yourself, I am awesome. Look in the mirror, look in your eyes. I'm not even joking right now, Paul. And say, I am okay. I was okay back then. And I don't need anyone else to tell me otherwise. I'm not going to look outside myself any longer. I already am whole and know who I am, and I'm amazing just as I am, as I show up. I don't need anyone's validation or anyone's criticism. It just is. If someone else says that, it can bounce off of you. I want you to think about what you might say to your kid if they came to you, Paul, and if they said that this exact story happened to them by someone else. What would you say to little Paul? What would you say? And I know it would be a comfort, and you would provide a safe space to hear how it made you feel. And also then you would probably give Paul permission to know that it's not true. Whatever you believe, you will receive. So all of the circumstances you've had since those early days that keep circling around the same patterning, David, the same patterning over and over and over again, they happen because at the time the cycle has not been broken. You were believing the old narrative, rewrite your story. I did something not too long ago. I had a person who works with me in some body work, and we text to make the appointments. And I had to cancel one of my appointments. And, she wrote back and said, I'll let you know some other options. And she did not write me back. And I kept thinking, why isn't she writing me back? Maybe she doesn't want to have me anymore as a client. And I started taking the whole thing personally, and there was no whole thing. And it kind of goes to the ghosting talk that we had in the last episode. I don't know why I did this, because it seems like it's not really my nature, but I got all twisted up inside my head because of the silence. And I took that entire silence personally, to the point where I didn't make another appointment. I didn't ask for another appointment. I didn't return to her for months. And all of a sudden one day, it's like I woke up and I was like, what the hell am I doing? There's no chance this person feels that way. But I couldn't understand, because, hey, if it were me, I would have been thinking constantly about what I have to do and who I forgot to write back, and it's my business and I've got to figure this out. That's how my brain works. But it's not how everyone does. And that through no fault of theirs. That doesn't mean they're good or bad or otherwise. It just is. And it's kind of a silly little thing that I can share that I did. And it's because it's a little bit embarrassing. And so I will say that I went ahead and texted the person, and her response was as if no time had passed and nothing ever happened. Sure, let's get you on the calendar. Like, no harm, no foul. And it kind of just pointed out to me that it was all in my head, and I am in charge of myself in this particular type of circumstance. If you're taking something personally, it's the number one thing to try to let go. It's not real.
And also to understand that maybe the other person just communicates a different way. And that's kind of what I've been thinking about with you, is that you like things a certain way. You articulate that to me in an honest way. And I love that about you. I love that I know what it is you want and what you like. And I should not take it personally if it just so happens that I do things differently in some cases, when it's so easy for me to do it a different way. And that's something that I think I've learned because of this exact thing.
So the first step is to become aware that you're doing it at all, so that the fighting can kind of go back, simmer down. And then to have a high level of acceptance that there's another way to look at something, right?
And also that love is at the center of everything.
At the center of everything, even my person that I just mentioned. It doesn't. What are we talking about here? Nothing is anything that we tell ourselves if we're making up these stories. They're not accurate. Nothing is real.
Right. And I also find that using humor in these situations is such a great breaker of whatever things were going on and whatever insults we might feel. Using humor and laughing at ourselves.
It's a game changer.
Yeah, it really, it has been. And what is it that we do when
there's like a self-deprecating sort of humor,
right?
And I'm like, oh my God, what in the hell? Why did you, whatever? And you're like, I don't know, I'm the worst.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
You're the worst. And we just walk away laughing. There's nothing more to say.
Right, right. So I think that adding humor to it, knowing that love is at the center, and also putting yourself in the other person's shoes, those can be really, I think, game changers when it comes to taking things personally.
I like to end this with something I saw online. It's a little quote, and it says, "Change isn't meant to be easy. It's meant to rip up your roots and put you in new soil where your roots can deepen. it's going to be worth it in the long run.
That's great.
So I feel like that's this time, this super moon, the next one of these cold super moons, the reason I mentioned it in the beginning, is the next time this is going to be seen is in 2042.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of a big deal. There's a lot of energies and a lot of opportunity for growth, and it's almost like whether you want to or not. Did you wolf out last night?
No, I fell asleep. I slept really well last night. No problems.
Yeah. I think we got this. I think we can all take a moment. We're nearing the end of this year. We're going to be addressing that a little bit more as we get through the next few weeks. There's so much good to look forward to and so many things we can put to rest. And the first thing you can do is to not look at everything through the lens of rejection. And it's your reaction. It's your truth that you don't need anyone else to tell you one thing or another. You tell yourself.
It's so true. And it makes life so much easier and so much more fun.
So fun. You're the worst. I'm the worst. Thank you, all our podlings. This was a wonderful reflection. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please take a minute. Please subscribe, like, follow, and share this episode with your friends. And of course, there is the 5 stars and the reviews, all that stuff.
We love your feedback too. So please send us mail at Chiming In. Sure, mail, email, right? Isn't that what you call it, mail?
Yes, you've got mail.
Right.
Remember that?
AOL. Yeah, but no, send it to chimingin911
yes,
at gmail.com.
Yes.
And we'll see you soon.